Welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today, hosted by Todd DeVoe, where planning meets reality.
Hi, good morning, and good afternoon, depending on where you're at. And I'm Todd DeVoe, and I've been involved in responding to disasters and emergencies since, well, a long time ago. And I started my journey in emergency management while I was working in EMS, and I started doing medical logistics, believe it or not. And then since then, I've become an educator, teaching post-secondary level. Learning and sharing what I have learned is a passion for me. So welcome to Business Continuity Today. And today, we're continuing our conversation on gamification and what it is. So last week we talked about what gamification is, but I'm going to go over it really quick again, just in case you didn't listen last week. So gamification is used as game design techniques in like a non-gaming context. So if you think of like, Amazon or Facebook and these things, they have that kind of concept of gamification, which keeps you engaged into their product. And what I'm suggesting is that we use those same type of gamification specifically in emergency management and business continuity training. And there's a couple of reasons why we want to do this. Is one, it gives us the ability to observe people in the context of the space of the drill, exercise, or training. And number two, it gives them a satisfaction of participating in it. It's not boring necessarily. You can sit there and drone on about incident command systems and people still start bleeding from their eyes, right? But gamification adds like the realism to it, if you will, the ability to get engaged in that training. And so gamification is one of the most effective ways to improve emergency management training. And it can be used by changing how points are rewarded. You can use like poker systems, you can use point systems, leaderboards, you can do the spinning wheel of death, if you will, and that will pull the what the event is going to be off of that wheel. So it's by chance of what a disaster comes their way. All different sort of things you can do to keep your students engaged. You're engaged in the training and exercises. One way that gamification can help improve emergency management exercise is more with, accurate information and feedback from participants during the exercise, because they would want to win their game, right? And better understand what's happening around them. So having that competition added to it, that piece, I don't know about you, but the people who I've worked with in the past, pretty A-type personalities, and they want to win and they want to be number one. Matter of fact, this game that I created, what I talked about last week a little bit, called Ready Home, we put in an area where you could, a portion of the game where you roll dice and you can steal stuff from the other person's home, right? And it was amazing to see how many people wanted to challenge that way to get things, just because it made it fun. So why can you use gamification in your business? Well, it's also data driven, right? You can demonstrate different basic data points within your training and exercises, and then you can bring that data in for evaluation, right? And it also supports self-evaluation for the students, and has them understand where they're at, where they stand. Data-driven decisions is very critical now. Taking a look at these data points, how you collect them, and how it helps you make decisions. It's an amazing science that's going on right now. And there are ways to gamify your exercises and training to bring in that data, present it to the participants, and also enable them to reflect on their own performance as a team. And then also, when you're giving this information to your superiors, to the people who you're working for, right? And it quantifies what training you're doing and why you're doing it. So now we take those constructs that we created and put into quantifying measurements, including the data collection, and then finally implement those measures and gamification elements in the disaster exercise game. And then the resulting data is presented to the participants, right? And so as you do this, now they see from an outside view of what they're doing and how they're actually performing, right? It's not just a subjective way of going, well, you did poorly here. And when they ask the why, the data actually kind of shows it to them. And, I think that has its own value in itself, to being able to point to something that's quantifiable than subjective. And one of the most common implementations of the non-intrusive game elements is creating this backstory, right? And that's the other thing that I think is interesting, is adding a narrative to the the training, to have that backstory in there, and it gets people sucked in. And yeah, it sounds odd, right? Those, especially some of us that are, old school, guys, right? It sounds odd to do this, but in today's world, games are huge. The Air Force has used games to help train pilots, not just the idea of simulators, flight simulators, right? But the gamification aspect of it. And you're starting to see younger people, teenagers, and in this generation, being able to go into these roles rather quickly, right? More than the older generation, because they were native to computers and whatnot, to iPads, to games, and they're able to function better, right? And so, how do we take that information that's going on today, right, where students today are already in the gamified world, bring them into the business world or into emergency management world, and still keep that ability to have games gamified, not games, but gamified training, and so they can actually really learn from that. And I think that's really important. At the end of the day, if we're not looking to expand how we do things and being on the cutting edge of training, right, we're going to be behind. And you've all experienced those trainings that you go to, and you're just like, why did I just spend 2 hours of my life that I'm never going to get back? I'd rather have acid poured in my eyes. Well, the idea here is using this narrative gamification style training. It really makes it engaging, right? And when you're engaged, you learn, right? And you have practical application that you're able to put into your day, right? So, that's I think, the most important portion of this. Now, we've seen this before, right? We've seen the concepts of role playing games, such as like, I, I guess Dungeons and Dragons is the one that comes to my mind, right? If you take something along those lines, and we've done this as well in some of our training today, where we did role playing inside the Emergency Operations Center or in your business continuity training, right? Of going, who has this role, what are they doing, and doing the concept of injects, right? Is kind of the idea of gamification, and this is important. Now, if you add that and you add the data gathering to this, yeah, you're golden, right? You're going to have great training. You're going to have great data to be able to collect, to be able to give to your superiors to show what has been learned. And then your students are going to walk away with more information inside their head and being able to apply that information at the end of the day when it gets operationalized during a crisis or a disaster. And that's what this is all about at the end of the day. So, in general, the introduction of data gathering through gamification and leverage the benefits of non-intrusive data collection with a potential available addition to feedback and evaluation process for disaster exercise. How can you go wrong? The scope of the research is limited right now, but however, we're seeing this more and more. I know that at FEMA's Institute for Emergency Management, right, we're looking at gamification there as well, right? Adding this process to it and adding the data collection and adding the fact that people are able to walk away from this training and to be able to implement it in real life situations and having a better understanding of why this training is being done. I think all of those are very successful outcomes for disaster training. I know this is a short one today, but thank you for being with us today. And visit Titan HST for all your communication needs. And remember to follow us on your favorite podcast player, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and join us next week. Until then, stay safe and stay hydrated.